those of you who have received your agenda and reviewed it, you know that our presentation today is going to be on managing COVID fatigue and essential care. So I'm going to start with a little intro and then introduce Alicia, who will be our presenter today. So since March of 2020, the COVID pandemic has created an unprecedented crisis that is negatively affecting care providers in significant and ongoing ways. This has created a chronic crisis phenomenon that has included isolation, disconnection from others, while contributing to feelings of deep exhaustion, anxiety, frustration, grief, and loss. In this session today, the participants are going to explore new perceptions on self-care that include holistic practices designed to increase energy and support mental and emotional and physical well-being. So for those of you who've never met Alicia, and I'm sure some of you have, Alicia Davis is a professional certified coach, a former Connecticut licensed massage therapist, and partner in coaching firm Transformative Leadership Strategies. I've met Alicia, I think, when I first came to the consortium, I think my first month here, and I've been having her assist me in many initiatives over the years. She brings over 30 years leadership development experience in the field of holistic healthcare, social services, and behavioral health nonprofits, insurance companies, engineering, and corporate settings. She creates a dynamic coaching and team building experience for leaders at all levels of an organization. I know some of you have had her do staff retreats within your organization. She is very much addressing challenges such as organizational culture, team alignment, change management, communication, and high stress. Alicia offers a unique core energy coaching approach to individuals, executive teams, and boards, and we are looking to achieve exceptional results. So I welcome Alicia Davis.
Colette, hi, it's Sheila. I'm sorry, I don't think Alicia has been able to join yet. I'm trying to get in touch with her now. I appreciate your lovely intro, but I haven't seen her.
I kept looking too. I thought maybe she was planning to come on right at
9:45.
9:50. Yeah, she's
I'm trying to reach her now. We were in contact this morning, but I haven't seen her yet.
Okay. All righty. Okay, so let's come up with something to do while we're waiting for Alicia to join us. All right. So, you know, one of the things I'll just update the group that, you know, one of the things we talked about early on in the initiative had to do with the fidelity scale for the trauma initiative that the consortium had been working on for many years. And I was really excited to let folks know that we recently were able to hire a company that's going to design the fidelity scale into a digital tool for us to use. So I'm really excited that in the next couple of months, we'll be able to try and utilize a fidelity scale that will be digital, that will do the computations for organizations and allow agencies to see their progress over time. And so that's an exciting tool. And at the same time as we're doing that piece, we also are utilizing the same IT company to work on the website for us to put back the trauma groups and what the folks are doing out in the field. So we always had the trauma groups listed on our website and who was running what types of groups. And we're redesigning how that's going to lay in the into our website. And what we're going to do is be able to upload all the data that was in the old website and then update that information. So the way the process is going to work going forward once this is ready, that instead of handing you like a paper survey for your organization to say what kind of trauma groups you're running and what's going on, you will be able to go in electronically and update the services as they change in kind of live time, which will be really nice. So it's an exciting piece. We'll know more as to where that stands as we head towards our next meeting in the fall. But I thought I'd give you a little taste for what we're working on. So you'll know both of them will be designed digitally and hopefully much easier to use. And with that, I did see Alicia Davis's smiling face.
Yes, good
This
morning,
is my beautiful
everyone.
intro of her, but she is here and I will turn it over to Alicia. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you, Colette. Yes, I just I just realized I don't know where the time goes. I was just on another meeting and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be on this call at 9:50 and it was 9:47. So thank you so much. And I'm super happy to be here with everyone and just really excited to share some thoughts and hear from you just about how you're doing. You know, this has been a really very interesting number of months that we have been all in. And when I was talking with, I think it was with Colette and Shannon and Morgan, we were talking about our topic today around managing COVID fatigue with essential care. And I know that Sheila and Morgan put a little poll together for us this morning. And so actually, you know what? I suppose, Colette, did you already do an introduction?
I did. I did
Okay.
I did
All
both.
right, great. So
Yes.
nobody needs to know anything else about me. So I'm here as a coach and I've had lots of wonderful experience. Oh, hi, Rebecca. Wonderful experience being a facilitator and a trainer through the Women's Consortium and with the REACH program and often with the TAG initiative. Oh, hi, Eileen. And Eileen and I have co-presented in many classes together. Thank you. So, all right, great. So let's just jump in. So I'm going to launch a poll here for you. And my question to you is, in what ways have you as a care provider been affected by COVID? So you have many roles. I'm assuming that some of you are leaders, some of you are direct service providers yourselves, some of you are moms, dads, supporters of families. So this is completely anonymous. It is multiple choice. And I just really want to get a sense of what are people kind of challenged with right now in terms of this whole COVID time frame and situation that we are continuing to need to manage. And we're going to talk about just even the continuing on of how this has just been long-standing and dealing with that ongoing uncertainty. All right, so I'm just going to give everybody another moment or two to put in their thoughts. Okay, great. So I'm going to end the poll. I'm going to share the results. So it looks like the biggest one, which I have to say is not surprising, in what ways have you been affected by COVID, is finding balance within work and family. So this is one that I hear all the time working with nonprofits, working with folks that are supporting family members, supporting individuals out in the community, right? Whether you're working from home, whether you've been hybrid, whether you're working and supporting a team, that there's just sometimes no separation between work and home. And so that is a big one we're going to talk about today. Being able to see people, have our supports, visit family and friends, of course, because of the safety issues and isolation. That's been, obviously huge. Just emotional eating and support eating or not eating. I've heard everything from I've gained 60 pounds to I've lost 60 pounds because this is the way I manage stress. And unfortunately, I'm a little bit on the gain side, but either way, it doesn't matter. It's still like COVID has affected our mental health and just our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. And that's really what we want to talk about today. So many of you have had sickness. It looks like many of you have lost loved ones or people that you have cared about, perhaps in your programs or on your teams. Some of you, all of the above. And then a lot of you put other here. And I'd just love to hear whether you do it in the chat, if that's more comfortable, or if you'd be willing to share, you can just share something. You can raise your hand, hit the reaction button and raise your hand. Or literally, if you're off camera, and if you're on camera and I can see you, you can literally just raise your hand. But I'd love to hear, what are some of these other impacts and ways that you've been affected? I'd love to hear a couple of other shares about that. Yes, Rebecca, having unvaccinated children. Yes. How many of you on this call, and you can use the reaction button, just do a thumbs up. How many of you on this call have children? Yes. So many of you moms homeschooling children that are younger, that have not been vaccinated. So the fear of going back into the workplace or going into a workplace after not having been there is a big deal, for sure. And it's ever evolving, right? What else? Any other thoughts?
I can share.
Please, Bridget.
I am just a natural born catastrophizer. Like, that's just, I go to therapy for it. So for me, it just almost feels like this is never going to end. And so it's just that constant worry of, like, you know, things get better and then it spikes, and things get better and then it spikes, and then we have the variant. And so it's almost like it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so how do you keep yourself motivated and kind of positive that things will eventually get better?
Oh, I so feel that kind of exhaustion of that, Bridget. It's I just think that is so true for so many of us. And I actually was listening yesterday to Glennon Doyle on her podcast, We Can Do Hard Things. And one of the things that she was talking about for herself was how she really struggles with clinical anxiety. And she said something that I just really loved, and it goes with the catastrophizing, because often when we're in that catastrophizing mode, we're doing the what ifing, and you know, we're in the future. And what she says really helps her is she really tries to shift the what if to what is. And in sessions, you know, in mindfulness practice, you know, coming into the present moment can be a helpful counterbalance to that what ifing, although it can be super challenging to do in the moment. But I just like that really simple shift of the what is, like what is. And she actually literally talked about how she connected with her senses. Like, she's just tried to hear like what was happening around her. She tried to take a deep breath. She tried to notice what she was seeing. And even if it was just for a moment or two, like, it helps her get out of that loop of catastrophizing. And I just love that really simple, like, if as often as possible, can we just begin to notice if we're catastrophizing and what ifing? Can we just begin to shift it into, okay, can I hang on to what is right now, even if it's just for a moment, because that does help our nervous systems to just drop down just a notch, which sometimes can be the relief that we need in that moment. So thank you so much for sharing that, Bridget. My guess is there are probably lots of us on this call who really are dealing with that all the time. Yeah. Oh, Rebecca, you love Glennon. Awesome. Well, how about, let me just, let me share a couple of thoughts, and then I'm gonna put you in a breakout room so you can have some more individual conversation with each other. So this session, this topic really came about that my business partner, Stacy Watson, and I created, managing COVID fatigue with essential care. It really came about because from the beginning of this pandemic, you know, she and I used to do everything on site. We used to do lots of sessions at the Women's Consortium. We used to go to all kinds of locations. We primarily work with nonprofits and with organizations that are providing care to others, and often others who are in some way experiencing trauma. And what we started to feel, both for ourselves as well as part of what we were hearing just in the universe of people that we were talking to, was there was this level of fatigue that was unlike anything that we had ever heard before. And I've been in the holistic healthcare field for 25 years, talking about well-being and self-care. And this just seemed really different. And so we just did a little bit of research on it. And just, this is all new. We've been in this, since March of 2020, so a year and a half. So this is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of real challenge, extreme challenge, like the heightenedness of the fight, flight, freeze response of how are we going to cope with this crisis? And it started out, right, as it was a crisis, and we were on lockdown, and all of that happened. And so we were in this very acute situation. But Bridget, as you were saying, it has gone on for so long now that we've gone from, that we can just get through it because we're running on adrenaline to, okay, we've been running on adrenaline now, and the adrenaline is declining, and now what? So what's happening is these levels of exhaustion mentally and physically and emotionally. And what you were just saying, Bridget, the what ifing, the excessive worry, the catastrophizing, that is the loop that many minds are on right now. And it is happening because we went from something that was not supposed to be, but that we reacted to as acute, short term, hopefully, and now it's long term. And so and I want to just, I'd love to just hear your perspectives on this, whether it's in the chat or a couple of shares, that the National Institute for Healthcare Management came out with this like mini study or report recently that just talks about that since COVID began, that people in general and care providers, I think, are even more impacted by this, because not only are you dealing with whatever is happening for you personally, but you are also supporting everyone else that you are supporting professionally. That symptoms of anxiety have tripled, symptoms of depression have quadrupled, and feelings of social isolation have doubled. And that is also in populations that are marginalized, the Black, Brown, African American communities, Latino communities, that it is even more pervasive. And I'm just really curious if your personal experience of this, whether it's for yourself or for people that you are serving, caring for, providing services to, if this lines up in any way. Have you seen anxiety going up, depression going up, feelings of isolation going up? How many have experienced any of those? I'd love to hear if if you feel like those are true statements or numbers. I'm seeing a couple of head shakes of people that I can see. Yes, for sure. Shelley says, hi, Shelley. Increased anxiety. Yes. Okay. So this is the reality. This is the reality that we're living in as human beings on our own. And as care providers, again, it's even exacerbated that much more because of the work that you are doing each and every day. So and you probably know this, but I just want to keep it super simple. The most common signs and symptoms of COVID fatigue: insomnia or oversleeping. So one way or the other, because your nervous system is just on alert, or has really kind of the hormones, the cortisol, the adrenaline, it is just not there anymore. You can't draw on that anymore. So just wanting to sleep, oversleeping. Lethargy, depression, anxiety, irritability, grief, of course, because there has been so much that we are all holding in our hearts over the losses that have happened and or the potential losses that we don't even know might happen. Like, we just started getting, I think, a little bit comfortable in, oh, maybe we don't have to wear masks so much anymore, and we can start traveling a little bit. And now it's like, oh, well, Can we really do that? Do we really want to be traveling right now? Do we really want to be going places that we don't know? And then challenge decision making. So again, because the mental processes that you are in are on so much, you're making decisions about so many things that normally would be kind of under the radar, would be happening subconsciously, that mental process is on overdrive. So it can be really difficult to make decisions. And so then add that to this is a lot of what Eileen and I, when work that we do together through the Women's Consortium and that we do separately, is that, you know, compassion fatigue and vicarious trauma and burnout are already happening in your field. Add on to that this year and a half of COVID, and it's like a whole nother level of trauma. And so just to really, again, to put this in a framework of reality, what we're going to talk about after, we're going to put you in the breakout rooms in just a minute so you can have just a little bit more conversation about it. And then I want to talk about, okay, what can you do for yourselves and your teams and or your, you know, if you have staff, you know, what can you do to help offset this? And I think it can just be super validating to just take a moment and say, yeah, this is how I have been affected by this pandemic in the roles that I'm in my life, in the work that I'm doing, and in the relationships that I have. And I know that I'm going to stop the share here. I know that I think Sheila sent out the handout that I had sent over, and the handout is really just places for you to, you know, jot down some notes if you want. And I'm just going to bring it up right now just so that you can see it. So I'm going to put you into the breakout rooms in just a minute. Let me just share the handout. So I'm going to put you into the breakout rooms in just a minute. And what I'd love for you to do is just have a little bit more just interactive conversation with each other about anything that you've noticed for yourself. So again, if any of these signs or symptoms or patterns of behavior or just ways of being, if any of this resonates, just pause and notice for yourself what that is, because my guess is that many of you that are on this call are often focused on everybody else. So this is really just a time to connect with yourself and what you need both perhaps in this moment today, and then hopefully also what you might be able to just weave in a little bit into some of your daily, we'll talk about essential care practices. So I'm going to put you into the breakout rooms, and I'm going to give you about 8 minutes or so, 10 minutes or so. And I'm going to keep the breakout rooms 3 to 4 people. So everybody has a chance to just have a little conversation about this. And just again, to whatever degree you want to share, just really just consider that this is just a place of honoring and just saying, you know, this has been my experience and this is what I know to be true. And then we'll talk about how to just offer continued care and support for yourself. Okay, so before we go off into the breakout rooms, does anybody have any questions? So in the breakout rooms, I'm assuming you know this, but I'll just say it really quick. You go into the breakout rooms, it's a private room. You'll have just conversation with the 2 or 3 people that you're with. You're gonna see a countdown. I'm going to give you 8 minutes on the timer. You're going to see it count down from 8 down to 0, and then you're going to get 1 more minute after that. It'll go from 60 to 0. So I'm going to give you 9 minutes total, and then what's going to happen is you will automatically come back into this room. You don't have to do anything to do that. Okay, so when you get into the breakout room, also just remember to unmute yourself, and the chat feature also does work in the breakout room. Okay. All right, here you go. So have a meaningful conversation with one another. So just say yes to join the room. So Kara and Rebecca, maybe you stepped away. Do you see the message to join your room? Hey, Kim. So Karen and Rebecca stepped away, so I'm going to put you in a different room, okay?
Rooms.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, I was alone, so I came
I
back.
know you were. I was just waiting for Kara and Rebecca to see if they were going to join. I'm going to put you into room number 1.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Kim, do you see there you go. Hi, Morgan. Hi, Sheila. I know we're recording right now. Do you pause the
Alicia.
recording, or do you edit the recording?
I can pause it.
Great. So everybody should be coming back from the breakout rooms in about 45 seconds.
All righty, I'll mute myself then.
So Sheila, so maybe, I'm not sure, Tanisha, did you get the handouts for today? 'Cause if
I'm
not,
gonna look back into my Barracuda, which is where I found this one, and then and it's probably in there.
great. Great. So we're just waiting for everybody to come back. And that will happen in about 10 seconds. Great. Welcome back, everybody. All right. So I'm curious, what was it like just to have a few minutes to just chat with a colleague about how you're doing? You don't necessarily, if you want to, you are welcome to share anything that you shared in the breakout room. And I'm just curious what it was like to just have a little bit of time to just have some self-reflection. Eileen, I got a thumbs up from Eileen. I'd love to hear a couple shares.
I had staff in and out of my office, so I was not able to participate as well as I would have liked to.
That's okay, Jessica. This is the day-to-day struggle, right? Pulled in many directions. So Marcia,
Our
nice.
group had a couple of women who've had babies during COVID. So we had an interesting discussion around things as a mother that you might not have been able to do with your new infant because of COVID, and how it changed becoming a new mother and all of the limitations, while also managing your own career and loss and different things. So we had a very nice conversation. And I think the thing I liked about it is, you know, when we're in a big room like this, it's hard to get a lot of participation, but when there was just 3 of us, everybody shared. So that was nice. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll try to do that at least another time if we can, because it is nice to just have a little one-on-one time. Well, and Marcia, I just appreciate what you're sharing here. Nice to compare notes about the difficulties, but also new coping strategies. That's exactly what we're going to talk about next. And I'm curious if you would be willing to share one, whether now or maybe later, a new coping strategy, because that is what this is all about. How do we take care of ourselves in really essential ways?
So for our group, all of us kind of increased our workout routine. You know, we found the time of day that we needed to, 2 of us like to ride bikes. So, you know, one of us does early in the morning, the other manages the stress later in the day. But all of us, and then one of us was walking. But so we, you know,
when the health clubs shut down and we were thinking, now what? You know, we all found new ways to reduce stress that way.
Beautiful, Marcia. Thank you for sharing that. What I love what you're saying about that is that not only did you find something that was helpful, that it sounds like each of you was helpful, you were also honoring your own rhythms about it. So, you know, one or two of you like doing it in the morning. I personally am an afternoon person. So 4:30, 5 o'clock, getting on my Peloton bike, that for me is the time. If I try to do it at 8 in the morning, it does not work the same way. So I think it's really helpful to know, like, and to really listen to what your body is saying works for you. So thank you so much, Marcia. Yeah, any other thoughts about being together in the breakout rooms or what came out of the conversation?
I think that the general theme is that people are burnt out. I mean, I think that people are burnt out and at home, they're burnt out at work, and that there's not much of an end in sight. So people are doing a really amazing job of being resilient and forging on, but it's taking a toll, I think, in general. I think
Yes.
all of us in a variety of different ways. But, you know, we're all in various different roles as well. And many, especially who are direct care providers, I mean, this has just been relentless. So already
Yes.
demanding jobs, you know, things that already these immense responsibilities have then multiplied, you know, times 10. And then on top of that, things at home have multiplied times 10. And people are just people. We can only do what we can do. So I think that was kind of our group. We had a really great discussion. I really appreciated what I heard from the people in the group. But I think everyone's really burnt out.
Yeah, that's absolutely, Rebecca. And I think what you're reflecting is just exactly, you know, what we're saying is that this is like healthcare providers, people in general, and healthcare providers in particular. We've never lived through something like this before, and we are only human beings. We can only do and take in so much, and so that's why, like, the importance of self-care, essential care, and just really paying attention to what we need and giving it to ourselves is so important. And I know that can also feel really challenging. So that's what we're going to talk about in just a minute. Thank you,
So
Rebecca.
I just want to add, besides COVID fatigue, the other thought in my head is a Zoom fatigue, because I feel like we've had so many Zoom meetings that at the beginning, it was much more interactive, and the longer we've been doing Zoom, the harder it seems to engage. So people are just, I think, exhausted from being on camera.
I am so with you, Colette. You know, and another thing, I read a really interesting article about how women in particular, for whatever, many socialized reasons, have even a harder time being on Zoom, because when we see ourselves in the reflection in the camera, we often have so much self-judgment, whether we know it or not. It's kind of like undercurrent, like looking like that, it's exhausting. So I always appreciate when people are on camera because I can see faces. And I also appreciate when people are off camera, because sometimes it's just like, I don't want to see or be seen right now. I'm here, but I don't want to see or be seen. And that is perfectly okay. Yeah, Mary Beth, did you have something you wanted to share?
I was in Rebecca's group, so she captured it. I think that Jennifer, Rebecca, and I, we were commiserating it, you know, in the beginning of the exhaustion and burnout. And, you know, I was commenting on being in direct care, the dread of, you know, getting back to some of the stricter COVID protocols that we had. We had relaxed a bit.
Yes.
And in the beginning, you know, our clients were fairly comfortable with doing what needed to be done last year in 2020. But now I just don't think they're going to be as willing. They're tired of it as, you know, too. And I just dread it. I dread saying the mask up and do this, do that. I don't know if I have the fortitude to enforce it again. last year was just so different. They were more willing.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so appreciating what you're sharing, Mary Beth, that, you know, like yeah, I mean, there's just this sense of, like what you said, dread, and just, really more of this again, continued, right? Like there's a heaviness, a big heaviness to this for sure. And I just want to offer, actually, it's a perfect segue into just a next couple of thoughts. Just it's interesting because Stacy and I had adjusted these few slides. I guess it was about a month ago, and we put in this slide around the realities of transitioning out of COVID, because it felt like we had turned a corner with the level of vaccinations, with the numbers going down, all of that. And now we're on this really interesting next curve, right? The next iteration. And I still think that, part of what, just to be able to stay in the present as much as possible, like, and again, just recognizing that part of the reality is that there are confusing messages and there's changing messages around what is safe and what isn't. Like, that is real. And that probably for a while, this underlying fear and anxiety is going to persist. And there's going to be grief and loss, and there's going to be worry. And, that when we can just kind of pause and shift the what if to what is as much as possible, but even for ourselves first, and then for our clients, for the people that we're providing care for our teams. But really, it is about remembering and reminding ourselves that the only thing that we can focus on is what we have control over. We only have control over how we think, how we feel, how we manage our energy, and how we take action on the information we have in front of us in the best way possible, right? You make the best decisions that you have with the information that you're presented with. And so, shifting the focus or trying to bring the mindset into, okay, what can I do just right now? It's so interesting. I was just listening to this, like I said, this interview with Glenn yesterday, and she was saying, I can't even think out a couple of months, or forget about a year or 5 years is like laughable, right? It's like, what she says is, what is the next right thing that I can do? Just what is the next right thing that I need to do for me, that I need to do for the person that is sitting right in front of me, whether it's my son or daughter, my partner, the person that you're providing care for, whatever it is, what is the next right thing? And sometimes it might not be doing anything except really witnessing, really being supportive, really just honoring, yeah, we're in these places and we're here, right? And maybe even reflecting, like, we can all pretty easily, when we are this tired, when our brains are this spent, that we can easily go into that worst case scenario, that it's never going to end. It's always going to be here. And, if you think back, like if you look at other situations, other flus, other things that happened in other times, they did end. Things changed. And when we're in the middle of it, it can just feel like, yeah, it's not going to. And it's really just trying to just notice where your energy is, notice what your own, like what your comfort level is about situations. Like if you're going out to see a client, or if you're thinking about going on vacation, or your children are going back to school, like, what is the comfort level? Like, what is the choice that you need to make for yourself? Like I started going back to the gym a couple of months ago, and I was unmasked, vaccinated, the whole nine. And then last week, the numbers started to go up, and I said, well, I'm gonna continue to go, but I'm gonna put my mask on now. And so it's just really honoring, like, what are your comfort levels? What are the choices that you want to make for your family, for yourself, no matter what anybody else is saying? And that it's really important to just really continue to put some attention on how you are recharging yourself, or maybe not even recharging, just maintaining the I can keep on going, or bringing the burnout needle from 0 up to maybe a +1, right? And so that's what I want to just continue just talking about and sharing a little bit about, because, well, and so let me just pause here. So I just want to just any thoughts about this transition time, or anything about what I just shared there? Any thoughts about what those?
I think for me, Alicia, I think one of
Yeah,
the
sure.
things that I'm struggling with now, I was trying to write this articulately in the chat, so I'm glad you asked so I can delete my ramble.
Okay,
but,
good. Good.
I feel, for me, I feel a sense, so I have a baby, she's going to be 18 months tomorrow, which seems insane, who has been alive since the pandemic basically started. Her whole life has been in the midst of this pandemic. And so, one of the things that I find myself struggling with now is really when I go to the stores currently, despite the current guidelines around masks, feeling angry at folks in my community who aren't wearing masks, who aren't following the guidelines, who aren't respectful of social distance, because again, I know I'm fully vaccinated, but I have a little one at home who isn't. And so then that sort of pushes me into that place of, should I be here? Is it safe to be here? Is it safe to be out in the world? And that, brings me to a scary place from earlier in the pandemic. So I can really relate to what you were saying, but I also, for myself, feel this struggle with other folks in the community who I don't know, who I feel myself having a reaction to. And there may be very, valid reasons for their choices, although I struggle with that a little, but it brings up a lot for me. And I don't always know where to put that.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Shelley. I think this is having those reactions. So here's just what I would say as a coach and somebody who did body work for many years. It's not necessarily where you put it. It's more about how you honor that you're angry, and how you're expressing that and creating space for the feeling of that. So you're not just stuffing it and your body's not just absorbing it, but it is perfectly okay to be angry, to have your feelings about it. It's more about how can you come to some place of, again, because it is a safety issue, what are the things that you have control over that keep you and your little one safe? And knowing that there are people in the world who are not vaccinated, and that is it just is hard, but it is about, I think, being able to whatever the feeling is that you are having, that part of it is really about, okay, well, what do I need to do so that I can come back to whatever my stable kind of emotional place is? Because being angry is going to, it doesn't do anything to change the external situation. All it's really doing is, just, it's upsetting, right? So I think that what you're saying, of course, it's human nature. I think we just had a situation where our daughter is getting married in September, and her father has been adamant about not getting the vaccine. And so there was a possibility he was not going to be at the wedding and wasn't going to be able to, do all the things that he would do as a father of the bride. And, as you might imagine, that created an incredible angst in our entire family. And finally, after a tremendous amount of conversation, he decided to get vaccinated. And, you know, it's more about how are we navigating in the world and honoring our feelings, no matter what they are happening or why they are happening. So thank you for sharing that, Shelley. Marcia, did you want to share something?
Yeah, I had two thoughts. One is, because it's, because of the variant, it's kind of a hope dashed kind of experience where, you're not just readjusting, but you actually had hope. There were these feelings of hope that were happening, and now you're coping with the fact that some of that is dashed. And then my other thought was, I don't know how, we didn't talk about this in our group, but I mean, I really feel as though in terms of, effectiveness in my work, that has, because personal contact is so important in what we do, that, this has been a year where we've been less than effective. And so, that's, there's just the kind of the grief of that, of just,
Yes.
wanting to do the best you can, and it's just not good enough right now.
Yeah. And these are not easy reflections to have, right? Like you're supporting other human beings that are suffering and in need, right? And you want to be helping them the most that you can. And the reality is that you can only do so much, and you can only do so much when you are not in person with them. And I think part of the taking care of our minds and bodies and hearts is to have really realistic expectations about what is possible, about what we do have the ability to do. Because I also think that, because there is so much care, because there's so much being used to, being able to do the work or provide the care or the services the way that you used to, right? That it's sometimes really hard to adjust to this new situation. And it really is about having, how can you set expectations both for yourself as the provider, as well as even with your clients about about what they can do as well, right? Like I just think it's like we're all trying to operate the same way that we did before the pandemic, right? And like we're not giving ourselves any room sometimes for change or adjustment or a little bit of ease or a little bit of just sometimes knowing that, maybe it might feel like that what you're doing in that moment isn't enough or isn't as much as, but still trying to just say, okay, well, I was here, I showed up, I was present, I did as much as I could do, and there was some impact to that. And so I think the mind can just so easily go to, that wasn't enough, I could have done more, it would have been different if I was in person. And yeah, probably all of those things are true in some way. And there was still some value, some connection, some way of support that you brought in that moment. So it's also being able to honor that. And again, these are all, what I would call just essential practices of mental, emotional self-care. So thank you for sharing that, Marcia. So true. So let's I want to just share a couple more thoughts, and then I'm going to have you go into breakout rooms again. So the idea of this, and this actually was inspired from working with one of our groups, and basically the idea of the essence of the conversation was, we're talking about self-care. I've talked about self-care for most of my adult life in terms of, being a holistic healthcare provider. And, in this time it just can feel like self-care is just one more thing to do. Like, how am I ever going to just, take some time for me? Or it can feel indulgent, or it can just feel like there's just no way. There's no way that I can do this. And what was interesting in the conversation that we were having with this organization was that we're like, we're essential, like they were running residential facilities. And basically they didn't have an option. Like, they needed to show up to the residents every day and provide services from day one of the pandemic. And they had to navigate through all of what that meant in terms of keeping their staff safe, the residents safe. And basically, the idea was, we're essential. We can't just not show up. We don't have the luxury of being able to work from home. And so we just got into this really important conversation about, like, being able to do the essentials. Like, what are the essentials of self-care in this time, in this moment of time where we are just at that end of capacity? Like, to really even just be able to simplify what it is and just really notice, like, what are the essential activities or the essential ways of being that I can do, or that I can maybe get support from others in doing, where I'm just in some way taking, I love this definition, taking an active role in protecting my well-being, and maybe not even happiness. Maybe you could even interchange the word stability, peacefulness, calm. So it's just this idea that right now, more than ever, we interviewed actually a CEO of a Head Start program yesterday. And she was talking about, as an executive director, how much she has noticed that having activities or doing things judiciously that she knows really help her, and doing them in moments of time that might be shorter than she might have done in the past, really is essential for her. Like, she just knows that if she doesn't do like some of her meditation, or if she doesn't get out for a walk every day, or if she's not drinking enough water, or if she's just literally sitting in front of the computer and not getting up and moving around at all, that she knows that that's just going to add to the drain. And so she was just talking about, like, that essential care, like, it is just that. It is essential. It is essential for us right now as human beings to at least do the fundamentals, to do the basics of what it is that it means to care for our bodies, our minds, and our hearts. And so I just, in the handout that Sheila sent, there's going to be some spots here that you can just refer to this. And I just want to offer a framework, and then I'm going to have you go into breakout rooms, and then we're going to come back and talk about this again. So we're focusing today just on physical body, on mental, and on mental capacity, and on emotional stability. So we're just focusing on those three aspects today, just for time, and just in terms of, if we just really boil it down to the essentials. So what I'm just going to invite you to consider is that there are things that you can do in micro moments of time and macro moments of time. And so a micro moment we define as anything from a minute to 5 minutes or 10 minutes, little things. And then there's longer things, whatever it is, right? Bike riding, yoga, this picture that's on the screen here, one of our care providers that I was doing some coaching with was talking about a number of months ago, her daughter, who was in second or third grade, one of the activities that her school had her do was to watch this video online that was doing kid yoga. And her daughter invited her mom to do it with her. And she was like, oh, okay, I'll do it with you. And it ended up being something that her mom just really, one, loved doing for herself, because it just gave her like 10 minutes to just sit and stretch and breathe. And it also, she was just talking about how wonderful it was to have that time with her daughter in that way. And so just really considering, you know, in short periods of time or longer periods of time, you know, what are some of the activities or the practices that are essential for you to be staying connected with the health of your body? And so whether it's movement, whether it's noticing what you're, you know, eating and drinking and putting in, whether it's rest, and it's not just getting enough rest, but it's also quality of rest. Like, how are you soothing yourself to sleep even? Like, can you listen to something like a mindful meditation or some music or some kind of ambient sound that just, you know, is soothing for your nervous system? So, you know, routines, having, you know, I know that, you know, a lot of the folks that we support have just, they know, like, they get up, they have their time with coffee or the newspaper or reading something inspirational or going for a walk or taking the dog out, or just whatever it is that just helps you kind of set that routine for yourself. Work boundaries are a big deal, you know, in the sense of, how can I shut off the computer? How can I step away? How can I make it clear that I'm transitioning from work to home, right? It's gotten really blurry. Those lines have gotten really blurry. So just considering also, like, how much are you taking in from social media? How much are you taking in from CNN? How much are you taking in from, you know, any source that, you know, if we're on, and Colette was saying this before, we're on screens all the time, you know, how can you, and I know I just saw in the comment, Jessica, you were talking about your 16-year-old, like, he's overcompensating to stay connected with his friends. He's up all night playing games, video games. So he's constantly stimulated, not getting enough sleep because that's the way he's trying to stay connected. So, you know, even a little bit matters. You know, is there a way that you can do just a few minutes that's different than what you do now, in a little bit more of an intentional way? So, so physical, and again, just on the handout, just, you know, again, just thinking about what are little things that you can be doing and what are longer things that you can be doing. But again, what is it that, you know, for you really, really makes a difference? And so I'm going to stop the share right now. Oops, where must my thing go? There we go. And I'm gonna have you go back into breakout rooms again, just for a few minutes. And I want you to just talk about both this idea of maybe micro practices and considering from a physical, from your body, you know, caring for your body. What are any ways that you know, or that you might consider could be just really fortifying for you, even if it's little things? Like, I really want you to consider the little things and how do they matter. Okay. So we're gonna do the breakout rooms again. I think let's just do the breakout rooms the same way we did them before. And I'm gonna give you just a little bit of a shorter time, though. I'm gonna give you 6 minutes with a 1-minute countdown. All right, so off you go into your breakout rooms, just having a conversation. And when we come back, we're gonna talk about mental and emotional self-care, essential care, and of course they are all tied together. So But in this breakout room, maybe just talking about some physical self-care practices. All right, so here you go. Open in the breakout room so you can have a few moments to talk about that with each other. All right, so everybody's coming back in 20 seconds. Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. Great. So I'm curious, would love to know just any practices that anyone is doing that just really feel important to them, that's really helping their physical self, which also probably helps mental and emotional well-being as well. What's anybody doing? Give me some thoughts.
I shared that I have tried to find some intentional space for myself in the evenings by paying attention to the sunset, which is beautiful to look at, but it also is like my cue, my internal cue. Like I see the sunset and it almost now cues me to kind of take some space for myself, go walk outside, pay attention to that, pay attention to myself. So it's one thing I do.
Yes, it's beautiful, Jessica. Thank you. We were just up in Provincetown this last week, which in and of itself was a whole nother, like, do we go, do we not go, do we mask, all of that. But mostly we were outside and at the beaches, and there's one place that just has these most gorgeous sunsets at Herring Cove, and we just went to a number of sunsets, and it's just that moment of awe, you know?
Yeah.
An expanse and just like, oh yeah, there's a world that's happening out there.
Yes.
Right. That's beautiful and bigger than everything else right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, Rebecca, exercising, listening to your body, resting when you can. Yes. Great. What other thoughts?
So I've been working from home now for a year, a little over a year. So for me, especially this past summer, you know, as things have kind of loosened up, not being so cooped up at home. So, you know, if I have a light afternoon, I take myself out to lunch. If I need to get stuff done, but I'm still getting cooped up, I find another space where I can do lunch. So it might be a working lunch or just enjoying some time outside while still being productive, I think has been important to me.
Love that, Bridget. Yeah, being outside, taking, if you can, take your whatever, your work, your computer outside, being in the fresh air. I know it, on a number of these calls, people have talked about having walking meetings. Like some people, when they weren't getting together, were just like walking in their rooms and talking versus being on the screen. Or sometimes people were doing meetings, walking and meeting people, or doing that. Even, you know, we're sitting so much as well, like even just standing up and moving, stretching, and yeah, great. Well, so let's talk about mental and emotional health and well-being. And Sheila and I were just saying how we could just both so relate to what Shelley said about being angry and having anger around, you know, people who aren't vaccinated and following the rules. And, you know, that this is just, you know, I call it the corona coaster of emotion. Like it literally is 1 minute I'm okay, the next minute I'm angry, the next minute I'm hopeless, the next minute I'm like watching a sunset, you know. And I think part of it again is just realizing that, yeah, it's pretty tumultuous, and just to try to honor, like sometimes we're just going to be on the roller coaster, and sometimes we might be able to slow the roller coaster down, or sometimes we might be able to level it out a little bit. But you know, that our mental health, like we're in a mental health crisis right now. Like there are so many of you who are trying to help other people. And again, who's helping the helper, right? How are you getting your own support for your mental state? And just, you know, just really considering, and many of you may be doing this already, but just really considering. I was listening to another interview that Brene Brown was doing with a neuroscientist, and she asked the question, are there foods that we can actually eat that help to nourish our brain cells? And he said, yes, absolutely. And, you know, some of the pictures that are on the images that are on this picture are, you know, healthy antioxidants and vitamins and healthy fats, you know, blueberries and avocados and olive oil and salmon. And, you know, and again, everybody's diet is different. And just to even consider, oh, I can eat something that will literally help to nourish my brain. And, you know, again, just noticing when we're in these patterns of thinking, whether it's negative, whether we're complaining, whether we're judging, whether we're just focusing on the what ifs, like we already talked about this a little bit, but just sometimes just shifting a little bit, like focusing again on, okay, well, yes, all of this is happening over here and I didn't feel like I was that effective, or I'm not sure, you know, if what I'm doing is really the right thing to be doing, or whatever the thoughts are, is to just maybe pause. And what I like to offer is to just practice a moment of mindfulness. And a moment of mindfulness can literally just be dropping into what is. Dropping into breath, dropping into the senses, dropping into feeling your feet on the floor, dropping into just honoring that you are, you know, that you are a human being, right? To just honor that you are, you know, at your essence, that you are love, that you are compassion, that, you know, when you're just showing up sometimes can be enough. And so, and to not also to be able to also focus on what it is that you might have appreciation or gratitude for. And even the smallest things can again make a difference. Like, how can you be grateful for waking up in the morning, for having food to eat, for being able to have Sheila was just talking about the 1-year-old birthday party that she just had with her granddaughter, like to like be in moments of joy, like when you're in the moments, like to be in those moments, like to really absorb them, to really take them in, to really allow yourself that happiness, to really be able to just recognize that those are the moments that are going to just help us continue to be able to handle the moments that are harder. That we remember that it's not all just about the stress and the challenge, that there are these moments that are beautiful and that are healing and that are loving, and that we can also, you know, how can you also just consider that you don't have to do all of this yourself, right? Like having these, you know, these meetings with colleagues, or just listening to Glennon yesterday, she was talking about having she called it a pod squad, but what she was talking about, I have to let my dog out of my office. What she was talking about was, you know, having, you know, if you're listening to something like a podcast or reading a book or doing something, that you do it and maybe you connect with others about it, that you can just have moments of talking about something or doing something or thinking about something that has nothing to do with the pandemic, that has something to do with something that you love, or something that is creative, or something that is just really, you know, awe-inspiring for you, or simple, you know. And so, and sometimes it literally is being able to get out of your thinking mind, which, you know, we are immersed in all day, every day, the thinking, the problem solving, the planning, and to literally shift into the creative side, whatever that might mean for you. What might mean just doodling, or, you know, doing something that is crafty in some way. And, you know, I was at the beach, like literally like walking around and picking up rocks. Like that for me was just very soothing and healing. So just moments like that. And I, you know, would also offer, and I'd love to just do something with you just for a couple of minutes, which you probably all also do, but just as the reminder that your breath is powerful and that your breath can help you come into a present moment place, that even for, if it's just for a moment, it is a moment of respite. It is a moment of letting your nervous system just go down a notch. It is a moment of, okay, the roller coaster's going. Okay, I'm riding it. I might be holding on, but I'm riding it. Like, to just, so I'm going to offer that just for the next couple of minutes that we do just a little bit of breath awareness together. And I'm going to invite you to, if you have your camera off, great. If you have your camera on, you can turn it off. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to invite you to just pause right now. And if you feel comfortable, to just close your eyes. And I'm really just going to ask you to just put your feet on the floor. And you might be in a place where there's interruptions and, you know, things that are going to happen, and that's okay. Just whatever you can do is perfect. But just see if you can shift out of your mind and into your body, even if it's just for one breath. And you might do that by noticing your senses, by noticing your body temperature, or noticing all the places that you are touching something, the chair that you're sitting on. You might notice it by hearing a sound other than my voice. You might notice that if you close your eyes, that not looking at something can be just a little bit of a shift inward. Perhaps a moment of just resting the eyes. Perhaps you notice a smell. Maybe just check in and notice if you have a taste in your mouth. You might even notice, be intentional about noticing, are you clenching your teeth? Or is there tightness in your jaw or in your face? And if there is, how can you just bring a little bit of ease? Open your mouth, relax your jaw, soften your face. And just allow yourself the moment, 2 moments, 3 moments of really breathing in and breathing out with some attention. And perhaps just really feel the breath moving in and the breath moving out. And perhaps even in this moment, just having a moment of gratitude for the fact that you are breathing in and out right now. And just allow a little bit of softening in another place of your body, wherever that place might be. Bring a little attention, a little bit of ease. Maybe just as you're breathing in your mind state, maybe offer yourself a little bit of grace. little bit of kindness. I am here in this moment. I am doing the best that I can do. And I'm going to continue to honor myself in whatever way I can. And see if you can just in the next breath or two, just see if you can just take that rest. And you might notice your mind is chattering, and see if the mind chatter, you can just let it float away, even if it's just for a moment. Let a thought float away on a cloud, come back to your breath. Just notice if you can land into this moment of being instead of doing. And then when you are ready, if you had your eyes closed, you can open them. If you had your eyes open, just come on back into the room that you're in. And you might stretch, you might need to yawn a little bit, just to come back into the room. I'm just going to stop the share for a second. So I'm just curious, what did anybody notice from that, I don't know, couple of minutes of literally just breathing and bringing some attention to yourself? How was that? So I'm going to assume from the quiet that it was quieting.
Calm.
That might not be
really
true,
calm.
but perhaps it was quieting.
It was calming, very calming.
Great. Thanks, Colette. Ah, Tanisha, yes, my friend. Yes, noticing that your body needs a little rest. Yes. So great. So we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes. And I just want to touch on, right, mental, emotional well-being, it all goes together. And, just again, just considering what are small ways that you can just support your heart, right? Support yourself being just a little kinder, a little gentler. And what I was saying earlier, I think when Shelley and a couple of other people were talking about feelings was, acknowledging your feelings, just acknowledging whatever you're feeling, anger, sadness, hopelessness, joy, excitement, like just trying as much as possible to be in the moment and just acknowledge and validate, yeah, this is what I'm feeling right now. And it's what I'm feeling. And, the judgment is what makes it harder. Like we're judging ourselves, we're judging others, because it's what the mind does. And the more that we can just acknowledge, this is how I am, this is what I'm feeling right here, right now, and just experience it and let that be okay. That gives us moments of peace. And being able to just, again, be really purposeful about the media that you're consuming or the people that you're around or the situations that you're in, minimizing that stress or the anxiety as much as possible. And I have to say, humor, lightheartedness, having moments of joy. Like I put this picture of this dog upside down here just because I'm a dog lover and I look at this picture and it makes me smile. Like it seems like some of these, I think maybe practices can seem so simple that they wouldn't matter. And I would just invite you to just consider that anything that you do, no matter if it's a moment of sharing an appreciation with a loved one or a family member, if it's a moment of sitting, even if it's just a minute when you're driving and you're sitting at a stoplight, like where you take 3 intentional breaths, or when you've had a really difficult situation happen, that you just pause and just maybe notice what you did and consider how was that helpful versus, okay, I could have done more. Like the thoughts like that are always going to be happening. And it just, again, to remember that everything right now is just exacerbated. So the more that you can do these little things that are just moments of connecting back in with joy, compassion, calm, peace, ease, that those moments when you're really present in them, it doesn't necessarily take a lot of them or a long time for them to really matter. So I guess, and I know we want to just finish up because I know, Colette, you want to just wrap up the meeting. So I'm just really curious. I'd love to just maybe in the chat, or if anybody wants to share, just anything that was a helpful maybe reminder or a takeaway from today, just around this idea of essential care for yourself in this moment of time in the world. What was helpful, meaningful, or a takeaway from today? So feel free, type in the chat, raise a hand. Or if you don't feel like sharing anything, if you're taking away something that was helpful, you can also just put a heart up on the screen, because it's also super nice to share a heart, see a heart.